ourselves or why we're listening, to take some tools from it. If take some tools from it, that's the bottom line. Tools to help you do what? Develop yourself, mold your mind, as Lama Zopa puts it, into this marvelous person, which is really what you're trying to do as a Buddhist. Mold your mind into a marvelous, happy, wise, fulfilled human being who can be of benefit to others. Speaking simply. Okay. Okay. So if we don't understand karma, we don't understand Buddhism. It's very simple, It's not the world view. The world view probably thinks Buddhism is kind of sitting on your bottom, watching your breath and becoming a bit more peaceful or something. But Buddhism actually is a world view. It's a view of the universe. It's a clear presentation of how the world exists, and particularly what is happiness and what is suffering. That's what Buddhism is. Of course, you don't have to do all that. You can take 1% of Buddhism. You're the boss, You don't have to learn it all. But if you want to be a Buddhist, if you say you're a Buddhist, then it goes without saying you have to understand karma. Absolutely fundamental. It's the view that the Buddha has identified. He didn't create it. He didn't make it up. He's not a creator. It's what he's observed, and as indeed it was observed before that by these amazing Indian yogis. But it's the absolute heart of the Buddhist view. There are trillions of sentient beings, trillions and trillions and trillions of minds, tiny percentage of human, trillions of sentient beings in states of anything from the most intense suffering to the most intense happiness. In samsara, he would say, locked into misery and suffering, locked into suffering because of delusions in the mind, neuroses in the mind, as we've been talking this week. Misconceptions in the mind, misconceptions about how the universe is, misconceptions about what happiness is, misconceptions about what suffering is, So he's saying that the trillions and trillions and trillions of mind possessors, consciousnesses, whose minds are beginningless and endless, there's no such thing as a creator. You can't just come out of nowhere. The law of cause and effect runs the universe. This is really what the law of karma is about. Is that such that every millisecond of every sentient being's thoughts and then actions of body and speech on the basis of the mind is this process of so-called creating karma, leaving seeds in the mind. They would use that analogy, leaving seeds in the mind that, unless they're pulled out or disturbed in some way, will just naturally ripen in the future in that mind stream as that person's suffering or happiness. That's it. That's the law that runs the universe, Buddha says. No one runs it, which is a big shock. If you're a Muslim, they talk about there has to be an architect. For Christians, there has to be a person who runs it. There's no view like that in Buddhism. It's massively different. And the materialist view, as they say, we haven't found the answers yet, so they're still looking, you know. So the Buddha is saying every millisecond of what we think and do and say, very simply, that's labeled negative. He's got a very precise way of describing that. Will leave seeds in the mind and will ripen as future suffering. And every single thing that's labeled positive or virtuous, these are very broad labels. We can define them fairly clearly. We need to, if we want to apply this law, that are called virtuous, will leave seeds in the mind that will ripen in the future in that mind as happiness. And there are 4 ways that those seeds will ripen. One is a type of rebirth. There's a whole spectrum of types of shapes of bodies that come along with a kind of mind and a kind of environment. All of these, the product of these seeds in the minds of these sentient beings. So the karma, our past karma, past actions, past seeds left in the mind from actions of mind, body, and speech, but can ripen in any of 4 ways. There's a type of rebirth, first one. There's a whole range of those. Anything from the most intense suffering to the most blissful. Which means a type of body, a type of physicality, with coming along with a type of mind that is embodied in a certain type of physical energy. Human is one, animal is another. There are more subtle ones that we normally can't see, called intensely suffering ones. So one's kind of called a spirit, is disembodied beings intensely suffering, driven by intense suffering. And even more suffering ones labeled hell beings. The Buddha's observed all of these sentient beings. We can see over the centuries, humans looking into the meaning of life, it seems to me, have come up with similar findings, haven't they? Different interpretations of the causes of these experiences. But it seems to be many humans, so-called spiritual humans over the centuries, in different cultures, the Australian Aboriginals, the people in Africa, people in India, people in this country well before the white people came along. Many similar, it seems to me, observations about beings that aren't necessarily human and animal. This is something really common, isn't it? Of course, the materialist philosophical thinkers are completely cynical about this and think it's a load of nonsense made up by idiots, you know. But Buddhists have observed this, Christians, Muslims, Australian Aboriginals, all they call them something different, but it seems to me it's a fairly common experience over the centuries. So a certain kind of rebirth, a mind that's embodied. So the first way your karma ripens is a type of rebirth, a realm of existence, they call it. The second is the tendencies in the mind of that rebirth, the tendencies in your mind, your habits, your tendencies, your inclinations, your personality traits, the way you think, the things you like to do, the things you like to think. Whether you're an animal, a monkey, an ant, a spirit, a human, same. Certain mental tendencies, which are basically a bunch of habits, meaning some things you thought before. You get born with those tendencies. Some of those can be neurotic and delusional. Some can be positive and virtuous. The third way our karma ripens, this first one's called the fully ripened result, the type of rebirth. The second is called the intentions or tendencies similar to the cause, which means a bunch of habits of having done them before. The implication, of course, is being previous lives. The third way the karma of sentient beings ripens is as experiences similar to the cause. In other words, we're very social beings, aren't we? Certainly humans and animals. We're very social beings. We live in groups. We have mummies and daddies and sisters and aunties and uncles and neighbors and enemies and friends, don't we? We are bumping into sentient beings all the time. So the experiences at the hands of those sentient beings, broadly speaking, again, whether they're intensely happy or intensely suffering, these are called experiences, similar to the cause. And the fourth way, we can see we don't float in the sky, do we? We have an environment. We live in an environment. We can see that, can't we? So we have bodies. We have tendencies within the mind in that body. We have relationships with sentient beings. They harm us and help us. And we have physical environments in one degree or another, isn't it? So karma ripens in terms of the type of rebirth you get, meaning the body, the kind of mind you have in that body, the experiences at the hands of others, and the way the physical world impacts upon you. So we can think of this. This is we don't know much about karma. We haven't studied any of us mostly in depth. But if we can understand these 4 ways that our karma ripens, we can understand why things happen to us. But we're taking it as our theory. We're taking it as, remember karma, we're taking it as our working hypothesis. Clearly, we're not clairvoyant yet. We're not highly advanced. We can't see the truth of it. Well, nor can you see the truth of most things you learn. You have to take it as your working hypothesis until you learn it. Well, here, it's until eventually we access subtler levels of our mind through meditation. Until then, we're going to just live in the theory of it. That's our choice, you know. So we think of it as our working hypothesis. So everything we think and do, every millisecond, whatever we think and do and say, every millisecond, nothing goes astray. Just necessarily is sowing seeds in the mind. And those seeds in the mind won't just disappear. And unless you do something about them, they're going to ripen as a type of rebirth, as a tendency, as an experience, and as a physical environment, how the world impacts upon you. It's a very simple concept, actually. But it's so utterly different from how we think, it's hard to hear it. And we are the cause of all of these. The seeds in our mind from our past actions ripen as these things. This is the radical different view that Buddhism has. It takes time to hear it. Because if we're Christian, we think God made me. If we're materialist, we think Mummy made me. In both cases, someone else plonked me on this planet, isn't it? That's how we think. I didn't ask to get born. Not my fault. We think that. Totally disagree. Buddha disagrees with that completely. As His Holiness Dalai Lama says, karma is like self-creation. This is the law that runs the universe. This is the law in which the universe runs. Put it like that. It's a massive law. It's a massive viewpoint dealt with in great depth in all the literature. And where does all the observation of all this come from? From the minds of the beings who've seen it. Not coming from on high, from a creator who made it. Not like that. No view like that in Buddhism. He disagrees with that completely. Everything is our own karmic appearance, as Lama Zopa says. Because it's so profoundly different, it's not the way we think, we feel and assume, you know. The way we all live our lives is we think that everything comes from out there with no logical cause. Bad things happen, good things happen, we don't know why. This is how we think, isn't it? Buddhism is fundamentally different. Massively different. Hugely different. So it takes us a while to even hear it. And when we do even hear these words, we can't hear it properly. We interpret it in weird ways, you know. First of all, the major thing is we think it's punishment and reward. That's the view we tend to have. We have very strongly with spiritual teachings, or certainly creative religions, there is the assumption of creator, isn't there? And that means punisher and rewarder. And that's reasonable. But that's not the Buddha's view. But we hear it like that. Someone's punishing us, someone's rewarding us. No such concept in Buddhism, because there is no rewarder. There is no punisher. There's no person running the show. This is a very shocking view for Christians and Muslims. Very, very shocking. You know, Buddha's basically saying we don't need creating. We do fine creating our own mess, and we can luckily create our own happiness. It's up to us. So if this is how it is, what do we do with this law? Well, it's like botany, you know. It's a natural law, isn't it? We know that. Let's say you've never heard of such a law. You've never heard of such a concept. Never heard of it. You know that things grow, but you've got no idea what governs it all. Well, this seems like potluck. One day pretty roses come, next day weeds come. You've no idea why. So you learn the law of botany. So what do you do with it? Well, it's obvious. You now use this law to get the garden you want. It explains the garden you've got, and you decide what garden you'd like. It's in your hands. It's like that. This is the basis of Buddhist practice. So very simply, the Buddha would say, if we look at sentient beings, we can all deduce the one thing we all share is the wish to be happy and the wish not to suffer. These words are very simple, but it's kind of quite profound, you know. So we look at sentient beings, monkeys, ants, dogs, humans. We can see by our behavior, we're driven every millisecond to do things, say things, think things that we think will bring us happy feelings and happy experiences, and we try to avoid the things that bring unhappy experiences. It drives everything we think and do and say every millisecond. And what Buddha's telling us, with the views in our mind right now, we're up the creek without a paddle. We've lost the plot. Everything we think and do and say actually is causing us exactly the opposite. What we think is the cause of happiness, in fact, is the cause of suffering. Which sounds extremely depressing, I agree. So if he's right, we need to look into it. We don't have to listen to him. We don't have to even take it on board. It's up to us, you know. So one very simple way, so the broadest principle is that everything we think and do and say sows seeds that ripen in these four ways. So the next level of detail is everything that's labeled negative or non-virtuous. These are more, we're going to be more precise about all this as we develop. Will only ripen as suffering rebirth, a negative tendency, a suffering experience, and a suffering type of environment. Necessarily, it's just the way it is. It's a natural law. And whatever's called a virtuous or positive action driven by a virtue can necessarily will ripen as a reasonable rebirth, good tendencies, positive tendencies, good experiences at the hands of others, and a good environment. It's a really very simple way of putting it. Extremely simple, not complicated. So, for example, let's say that the action to not kill, a conscious intentional decision to refrain from killing sentient beings. The fully ripened result of that is at least a human birth. You get a human mummy. One of those seeds will be triggered at the time of your death. You'll be programmed to go to your human mother, like we, in this case, as we are right now. Second, the result of non-killing can also, the other three ways that karma ripens are like the residual results of that from different lifetimes. So one seed will be triggered at the time of our death, which in our case has given us has caused us to go to a human mother. But we can see in the minds of many, many humans, I mean, there are 7 billion humans, but look at the number of humans who actually have a tendency to kill. The vast majority, I'd say. You know, Catholics say that God made the animals for our benefit. They don't have a soul. Muslims have a similar view. Most religions even kill. Hindus kill, you know, sacrifice animals to give to the gods and so on. It's not uncommon, even religions, to kill. But most humans, and certainly in the materialist world, you don't get put on death row if you kill a dog. You might be called naughty these days because we're attached to our dogs. You certainly won't be put on death row if you kill a rat. You'll be cheered, you know. So we have tendencies to, and look at the humans and why they're within our culture, because what makes up a culture is human beings, isn't it? So obviously the tendency in our mind is so pervasive, our cultures are driven by this, you know, the tendency to kill, a tendency to kill ants, cockroaches, rats, beings we don't like. You know, if you'll be called a monster if you kill a poodle, But you'll be called a hero if you kill a rat. So it shows it's all driven by attachment. Rats and poodles feel the same. So we can see there's a strong tendency to kill in humans. So we get a human birth due to one karmic seed, but due to other karmic seeds of non-killing from other times, of killing, they ripen in this life as a tendency to kill. This is the most tragic one. The third way our killing would ripen is as an experience, which means, and it's called experience similar to the cause. That would be to get, to not get killed and not die young. Well, so far we've got that, haven't we? So far, so good. Our gas tank of non-killing is still ripening. But look at the number of people who've got the other one. Look at the number of humans again, just humans, who got the human birth as a result of one of their non-killing karmic seeds, but as a result of other killing karmic seeds, they die young. Babies die, Fetuses die. I bet you more fetuses die than even babies that get born. I wouldn't be surprised. Their mind went like a magnet to that mother's womb at the time of conception, but then the other karma they had was to die young. They were aborted or miscarried, Babies die, children die, happy people die, healthy people die. We can see it on the planet. We can see it. People die young or get killed. That's the experience similar to the cause of killing. Then you've got humans. Then the fourth one, the result of non-killing as an environmental result would be the physical world itself nourishes you. The food is delicious. The water is pure. The air doesn't harm you. Things nourish you. And you've got a strong body and don't get very sick. We've got quite a few humans like that. But look at us now with COVID, for example. It's universal. This is the collective karma of us millions of humans as a result of past killing, the environmental suffering of COVID-19. Some people actually have the result similar to the cause of past killing. They die young, but the environmental result is getting sick. And means the physical world harms us, the water, the air, the food. And in the case of COVID, other human beings harm us. We breathe on each other and we can die, This is the environmental result of past killing. So we can see we'll have a human body, but we have the other three results, all of killing. We have tendency to kill, we might have. We might get killed or die young, the second one. And the third one, environmental, we might get sick and be weak and things don't nourish us. The water's food, the food's bad, allergies and this kind of thing. The physical environment harms us. We can see this in the world. That's just one example of one action. So one of our very strong tendencies is if we think we're a nice person, let's say we look into ourselves and we've got some fairly good tendencies. We might lie very much. We mightn't steal, we mightn't kill, we mightn't rape, we mightn't torture, fairly nice people. Talking about our actions now. Let's say we don't lie, but someone at work thinks you're lying. We're shattered. We assume if I don't lie, if I'm a nice person, I should be treated nicely. Well, it sounds good. It would be nice, wouldn't it? I agree. But you've got to have the karma. The first one is you've got the tendencies, how fortunate you are. But the second one is you've got to have the karma, the other one called experiences similar to the cause. So I think, for example, my friend's in prison, wrongly accused of doing things. It's a really terrible suffering. You're completely, like I always quote that my friend Sonny, 50 years ago in the 70s, hitching with her husband, this hippie Sonny, this nice Jewish girl. And they get picked up by two guys, and the guys get picked up by the police, and the guys kill the police and blame the hippies. Well, they're on death row in Florida. 17 years in prison. Totally innocent. You can't imagine the pain, the nightmare. Even just getting accused of saying something wrongly, you have a panic attack. When your sister accuses you of doing something, you freak out, Can you imagine that one? So many cases like that. That's experience similar to the cause, of something like that you've done in the past to those particular people, because karma is pretty personal. If it's a natural law, if karma is a natural law, think about this. If karma is a natural law, then how could it be that a person you've never met ever in any past life could suddenly randomly harm you. It's impossible. That's like thinking a rose can grow in a garden where you don't put a seed. It's not possible. We can see that with natural laws, things are coherent, consistent. Karma is a natural law. Keep remembering that. It's a natural law. It's not punishment, not reward, because there's no punisher, there's no rewarder. It just occurs. That's why it's in our hands. This is the main suffering. I mean, they say the greatest suffering of most humans is that we don't realize that our happiness and our suffering are caused by ourselves. We think it's always the outside world. We think it's everybody else. We spend our lives thinking this. Look at this. This is the main suffering, one of the main sufferings. We don't realize we are in charge. So you could be a very nice person, but you could be not believed. That's because of past lying. So it's ripening as an experience similar to the cause of past lying, specific to certain people. So there's just the negative ones, but of course all the positive ones too. But unfortunately, we don't think about those. And this itself is a very interesting point. Why, in other words, we take happiness for granted. If you wake up in the morning and your body's not sick, you just kind of feel, oh, this is great, isn't it? Aren't I lucky? Wow, the universe is kind to me. My body's healthy. But the second you get a headache, we freak out, This is because of attachment and aversion, like we've been talking through the week. Because of the deep assumption of attachment, it's like the hubris of attachment is that I deserve only the good things. And the assumption of anger is, how dare bad things happen to me? I don't deserve them. That's why we suffer so terribly. Completely false assumptions, Buddha says. Completely false. We've made them up, It's very deep. In other words, we never ask the question, why do good things happen? Never, ever, ever. We never ask that question. We take the good things for granted and we kind of greedily want more. We assume it's my right to have good things happen. I deserve happiness. We feel that very deeply. But that's like saying you look in your bank account and there's no dollars there and you get outraged. How dare there be no dollars in my bank? I deserve dollars. This is a really powerful example. Think about that. We know we would never say that because we know it's my bank account. But if there's money there, I put it there. And if there's no money there, then I didn't put it there. So you'd never say, why are there no dollars? That's only said if you assume it's someone else's job to put dollars there. And that's the assumption of ego. That somehow out there, some people out there should be making me happy. I deserve happiness, we think. So it's an assumption. We can see, we have to unpack this. Buddha says it's completely false. And you look in your garden and there are weeds in it. Who put weeds in my garden? I don't deserve weeds. You'd never say that because you know that what's in the garden, you either didn't pull them out or you put in what's there. So you own responsibility for your bank account. You own responsibility for your garden, but we don't have any sense of ownership, any whatsoever, in our lives because we don't have the view of karma. It's quite shocking because it's such a hard one to hear. It's so utterly unusual. We've never heard of such a concept. I mean, in the Christian teachings, they talk about you sow what you reap, or you reap what you sow. There's something like that. But still, insofar as if you're naughty, God punishes you. If you're good, God rewards you. There's no view like that. My mother used to say, virtue has its own rewards. That's the Buddha's view. So all the negatives, all the experiences we have of suffering at the hands of others, environmental, our own tendencies, they are the fruit of seeds we have planted similar to those in the past. All the happy experiences, and I think for most of us ordinary people, if we counted the moments in a day when things go well, we'd have far more better experiences than bad ones, but we don't think that because we only notice the bad ones. And then, have pity for ourselves and everything. We all recognize this. It's a very strong tendency. It's the irony of ego, So we have these assumptions deep in our minds. It makes it hard to hear karma, which is so contradictory to those views. You know? So it's a very difficult one to think about. Extremely difficult. This is the Buddhist view. It's up to us to look into it. We don't have to. If we like Buddhism, we say we want to practice Buddhism, this is the basis of your practice. And there's levels of practice. This is junior school entry level grade 1. There's no discussion of compassion here. There's no discussion of helping others yet. You've got to help yourself first. So the very first one, the logic here is, do I want happiness? Yes, please, Robina, you're talking to yourself. Do I want suffering? No, thank you. This is the basis. The Buddha says, okay, guys, I've got this. This is what I found. This is my method. This is what I found to be true. You don't want future suffering, then you don't cause it. You go to your doctor, she says, do you want to have cancer in the future, Robina? Do you want diabetes? I'll say, no, thank you. And I'll say, what's the solution? Well, she says, stop causing it. She'll tell me to stop causing it. It's pretty simple. So she'll give me the method. Don't eat sugar, don't do this, don't do that, give up smoking cigarettes. It's pretty straightforward. We get it when it comes to nutrition, physical nutrition. It's easy. And we know it's in our hands. When it comes to the mental one, emotional one, experiences, that's a different kettle of fish for us, isn't it? It's a weird idea to think that we create our own happiness and suffering. I mean, literally from life to life. It's a very strange concept to us. Because we think the mind is the brain, or we think God gave us a soul. There are these very different philosophical views. And all I'm doing is presenting these different, this philosophical view in light of the other ones, so we can see and compare and think about, it's up to us. So if you want suffering, if you don't want suffering and you want happiness, and that's a very broad statement, we've got to know more precisely what Buddha means by that. I think we talked about that already throughout the week. He's got different levels of understanding happiness and suffering, different levels of understanding suffering, 3 levels of suffering. The grossest one is the obvious one, the only one we think of as suffering, which is when the bad things happen. Food harms you, person's mean to you, you've got a knee ache, we say that's suffering. And that's the only suffering we consider to be suffering. The Buddha's view is much more nuanced, more subtle than that. Let's even look at just that one. Don't worry about the more subtle levels yet. So the very first level of practice for the Buddhism is what it's calling abide by the laws of karma. Buddha's telling us what he's found to be the laws that run the universe, the natural laws. And if he says you don't want future suffering, then you should refrain from a few actions. Very minimum, bare minimum, maybe the first 7 actions, 3 of the body and 4 of the speech. It's quite straightforward, not so complicated. His very first piece of advice. But if you don't want future suffering, don't cause it. So that means if you don't want to be lied to in the future, I mean, we're assuming here we're getting another human birth. Forget about lower realm rebirth. That's another discussion. Let's even keep it simple and assume you get another human body. So we know if we think about it, I don't want to have negative tendencies. We know we wouldn't want to have lying, stealing, killing, wanting to jump on somebody else's partner all day, eat food all day. We know we don't want that tendency. It would be very painful and overwhelming. We don't want those tendencies. Solution? This is the mind now, but let's look at the other ones. They're the body. The body. The result of, if I don't want other people to be, would you like to be lied to, Robina? Killed, tortured, harmed, raped, abused, insulted, stolen from. All the experiences that humans, forget animals, humans have at the hands of others. We know we do not want that. Pretty straightforward. The Buddha's solution, like your doctor, don't cause them. Don't cause them. Which means simply don't do them. It's really not complicated. But, we hear it as punishment, reward, someone's sort of squashing me, don't do this and don't do that. We hear it as, you've got to be a good girl, otherwise you get punished. That's how we hear it. No one's punishing us. I mean, your doctor doesn't give you cancer if you smoke cigarettes. She's not your punisher. She's just your advisor. Buddha's like that. He's found from his own experience, from his own observation, that the results of being, for example, being lied to is this experience similar to the cause of having lied in the past to that particular person. Karma is personal. So it's not a complicated concept. And the basis of it is because I don't want suffering. I am sick of suffering. I do want happy experiences. I'd like to be seen as a nice person, not lied to, not stolen from, not killed, being kind. We all know we want that. Fundamentally, very simple, we want that. Well, then Buddha says you better cause it. It's in your hands, Robina. Here's my advice. This is my experience. Over to you. Like a doctor. She can't force you. That's the attitude. That's the approach. But we hear it in a very different way. We hear it as kind of punishment. I should be a good girl. I'm naughty. Oh, you mean that's why I'm suffering? I've been a bad person in the past. That's how we hear it, you know. It's practical advice of how to avoid future suffering. And then, of course, it explains why you suffer now, which should be an extra reason to want to refrain from it because you know you don't like it. So the very first level of instructions, like advice that Buddha gives, is this little list of 10 don'ts. He recommends just 10 things. First 3 are refraining from the killing, taking the ungiven, as the Tibetans call it, and what they call sexual misconduct, jumping on the wrong partner, taking someone else's partner, cheating on your own, for example, misusing your body based on attachment and anger to harm others. Pretty straightforward. And then you've got full of the speech, which of course is us humans, clever humans with our clever minds and clever mouths, you know. He suggests we don't lie, don't say words that aren't true. Don't rabbit on about nothing, just blah, 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 meaningless words. Don't abuse people with your mouth, and don't talk bad things about people behind backs. These are the things we do with our speech. It's pretty clear. And each of these has their own karmic consequences, and refraining from them has the opposite consequence. So then, you know, if you stop lying, no, people will believe your words in the future. It might mean in this life, because you've still got the tendencies from lying. You know, you got to. This is like long term, but it can certainly start changing things even now. So the whole attitude is like the attitude of a doctor. A doctor is a wise person who's studied the body and can recommend to you that if you don't want future cancer, you don't want diabetes, then don't cause it now. Give up causing it. We understand this so utterly. You know, it's exactly the way Buddha's talking with karma. It's exactly, no difference. Exactly. Which is why practice is hard, because we look at our tendencies, you know, not looking at the mind yet. We see our tendencies, but then cause us to say things and do things, you know. So this is why the very first level of practice is not about the mind yet. This is entry level junior school grade 1 is control the servants of the mind, control the body, control the speech. And at least Buddha's recommending at the very beginning to at least refrain from the heaviest actions, which are those that necessarily harm others. You know, they're the heaviest negative actions because they bring results at the hands of others. There are thousands of actions we do driven by attachment and anger that are not harming others. Like, you know, attachment drives us to, you know, the grossest level of attachment is attachment to the objects of the senses, food, sex, you know, music, the objects of the senses. Not being fundamentalists. When we're very attached to those things, we can see that only harms us. You know, it doesn't harm other people. So at least the first level of recommendations by the Buddha is to refrain from the heaviest ones, which harm others, which bring the heaviest result of you being harmed. This is the logic of it. You know? And then, of course, we can deduce from that, well, if he says to control my body and not jump on too many girls, then at least I can also deduce that perhaps it means not eating every piece of food I ever see. Maybe have a bit of discipline. It's a less severe action, but it's driven by a delusion, for sure. So first is to control the body and speech, control our behavior. At least refrain from the heaviest actions, which would be otherwise ripen as those heaviest experiences yourself, even within another human body, as we can see from the human realm. People have got a human body as a result of non-killing, but the residual results of other actions of killing and stealing and lying and harming. Look at the experiences of humans. Forget animals. Look at the suffering humans experience. Unbearable. At the hands of others. Karma's personal. It's natural law, you know. Even if you bump into somebody, you meet a person, it's not possible, you know, that you have any relationship with them unless you had it before. The strength of your past karma with people, it equals the strength of the relationship we have now. The strength of the harm you've done equals the strength of the harm they do to you. And the strength of the good of your past is equal to the strength of the goodness that you receive at the hands of others. Good or bad, same. Happiness and suffering, same law. You know, gardens are governed, weeds and flowers all relate to the same law. Same. But as I said, we don't tend to ask why do good things happen. We take them for granted. We freak out only when bad things happen. Just this broad view, trying to get used to, become familiar with, you know. And then what you do with that law, like the law of botany, explains your relationship, explains your experiences now, and then it gives you, it implies the advice in order to set up your future, because you're in charge. You want a healthy body in the future. You don't just wait for someone else to give it to you. You have to cause it. We know. It's logical. Same with your experiences, the mind, and experiences with other beings. It's up to us. So if there's a thing called a negative action and one called a positive action, we better understand what that means. Don't just assume we understand what it means. Buddha is very specific, very precise. So in general, this is what I always use this example, but you know, if I'm a Catholic, I always quote this. You know, I asked my Jesuit priest friend, how do you define a sin, a negative action? What defines it? What makes it wrong? He said, and this is a crucial point about creator religions, it's because God said. God's the boss. If you're a Catholic, God is the boss. This being who creates the universe, creates you, creates the rules. Obviously, God needs to be obeyed. It's just how it is. It's not Buddha's view, but I'm telling you, that's a Christian view. And that's how we hear bad and good. You know, someone says you shouldn't do it, so I'll get punished. I'm naughty. That's how we hear. That's how we think of it. Buddha disagrees with that. For the Buddha, a negative action and a positive action, it's based on natural law. The most obvious one, you just do your market research among humans. Do you like getting killed, lied to, stolen from, raped, tortured, attacked, be starving? No, thank you. Well, then that's natural law, isn't it? This priest said natural law plays some role in its being a negative action, but the main factor that determines it is the fact that it's God's will. We know as a Catholic or a Christian, you go against God's will. That's what means by a sin. So then punishment is naturally what will occur. And the reward is what occurs if you do God's will. I think there are subtler ways of understanding this. It's similar to the Buddhist one, maybe. But for the Buddha, it's a natural law only. It's got, killing is not wrong because Buddha said. That's absurd. Smoking is not wrong because your doctor said. What a ridiculous idea. Smoking is wrong because it harms you. And that's the point the Buddha's making. So killing is wrong. One, it's called a negative action because it harms another. But this is the crucial point, and we miss this. The reason at the beginning and all the way through our practice, that Buddha would exhort us not to kill is not because it harms others. The reason first is because, guess what, Robina? It'll harm you. It'll sow seeds in your mind that'll cause you to kill. It'll sow seeds in your mind that'll ripen as you getting killed. And it'll sow seeds in your mind that'll ripen as a lower realm suffering to get, that's the main one. And it'll create the cause for you to have a negative, unhappy experiences in the environment harming you. So this is a natural law. Of course, to think, the environmental one sounds really abstract to us. How on earth can my actions cause the environment to harm me? It sounds so mystical. It's all explained in the Vajrayana teaching. It's all there. It's all there, logically explained. The whole kind of way we're constructed, the way the universe is constructed, especially the Vajrayana model. So the fundamental thing behind the wish to want to the wish to behave better, the wish to live a disciplined life and control your body and speech is because you do not want future suffering. That's what has to drive it. It's got to be self-respect. We miss this one. Then eventually, of course, you have such compassion for others, that will drive you. But first, it's going to be like compassion for ourselves. A good way to put it. That's what drives you to not want to smoke cigarettes, because you don't want cancer. Not because you think, I won't be able to benefit others if I don't stop smoking. We don't think that. This is the first level of karma, first level of practice, junior school, entry level, grade 1 level of Buddhist practice. discipline your body and speech. In other words, we are the beneficiaries of this practice, direct beneficiaries. The whole first level of practice is called it's the morality of refraining from harming. And we are the direct beneficiaries of this practice. But as Amazova says, of course, the rats and the roaches will be happy. They'll have a party because you leave them in peace. But the basis of the philosophical view of karma right at the beginning, the basis of it is to protect you from future suffering. You are the beneficiary. So, of course, it's a wild view that your mind goes back to beginningless time, as nutty as it sounds, so it's completely crazy. But for the Buddha, it's logical deduction if you assert cause and effect. By definition, if you assert the natural law of cause and effect that runs the universe, you cannot have a first cause. I mean, the Christians have very intensive philosophy trying to show how there can be a first cause, which, of course, is called God. Not viable for the Buddha. And they studied this in great depth in the literature, in the monasteries. We need to think about all these things, not just believe what Buddha says, but prove it to be true ourselves, slowly, through practice and thinking and meditating. Because as the Dalai Lama says, if we find that what Buddha says is wrong, then we must reject him. Of course we must. It's obvious. It's up to us. This is the fundamentals. And then we're just discussing here the first level of suffering. Just to, in order to stop the first level of suffering, which is these things happening to us or a lower realm rebirth, this is the very first level of practice. This, as they call it, Buddha calls it the suffering of suffering, when the bad things happen. So there's two and we're not even discussing the subtle levels of suffering yet, forget that. So there are two major tools that if we're trying to use Buddhism in our daily lives, that we need to use to really make this a very potent practice, a very fulfilling practice, a very complete practice. Just being good is not enough, as Amazova says. Just being a nice person is not enough. Why would it? Being a nice person means, frankly, it means because of past virtue, we're born into a reasonable family with some money in the bank, and we're able to get a house, we're retired, we've got money in the bank, we're not homeless, we're not completely crazy, we've got some good tendencies, we're fairly nice people. That's just not enough, because we're resting on our laurels. It's really the result of past virtue that we are able to have a fairly pleasant life now, and therefore aren't being attacked every minute, and attacked and abused and harmed and lied to and stolen from. Can you imagine then? I mean, it's easy enough to be a nice person when no one's attacking you every day. I mean, you're living on the street. Look how hard it would be. If you're living in a maniac prison, living in a violent country, if you're living with a rapist, if you're living with people who abuse you daily, and many millions of humans are, then who's called a nice person? It's hard to be nice. So we can afford to be nice because no one's threatening us. The worst is little things happen to us. If we think about so our lives are like luxury in comparison to some people. But just being good is not enough. So what that means is, okay, so in order to understand this, we did discuss it during the week. We'll do it again, more depth, of course, for today and tomorrow. It's like, in order for any action we do to qualify as what they call a complete action, which would be one that would drop seeds into your bank vault, as I refer to. That would be one of that in our case, was one of the seeds that was triggered at the time of our past death, not more than a few weeks before we found our way to our present mother's human fallopian tube or wherever. That was a complete karmic action of non-killing, very specifically. So just to get a human body, again, you need very strong non-killing karma. But now this is the point. At this moment, this is a really crucial point to get. At this moment, we're not killing, are we? None of us, not one of us in this room is killing anything, presumably, unless, of course, all the creatures in our body. But there's no active killing going on. So we can say we're not killing, aren't we nice people? But look, there's no intention, is there? There's no thought, I will not kill, I will not kill, I must not kill, I must not kill. There's no thought, I will not kill. If there's no thought, which means intention, and intention is the very meaning of the word karma, mental action. So if there's no thought to not kill, we are creating zero karma of not killing. So being good is not enough. You're just resting on your laurels from past karma. You're not being attacked every minute. You have to be thinking every second, I won't kill. So when the mind is not involved, you can argue there's no karma. So we're not accumulating any virtuous karma of not killing. It's a crucial thing to understand. We are nice people. We are not killing. Maybe even some of us save the flies and the mosquitoes. Then, only then, do we create the karma of not killing, when the mind is involved. This is a really crucial point to understand about karma. You only create karma, put seeds in the mind, when the mind, intention, very specifically, I will not this, or I will that. That's when you put a karmic seed in your bank vault. So given that we need bucket loads of rich, delicious, intentional karmic seeds of non-killing, enough just to be able for one of them to be triggered at the time of our death just to get another human body after this one's finished, you need bucket loads of non-killing tendencies in the mind. Karmic seeds actively sown there, dropped into your bank vault. So the only time that'll happen is when you meet the mosquito and you think, I must not kill it. Then your little seed dropped in the bank vault. All the other times of the day you're not killing anything, then you're not creating any virtue of non-killing. You're just using up your past karma. So just being good is not enough. So this is where vows come in. There's two things, the two tools, vows and purification. With vows and purification, you can sit back with your feet up and watch telly all day eat popcorn. You are fine. You're ahead of the game. Vows are so potent that every millisecond you're living in your vow not to kill, 24 hours a day, the vows are so powerful. This is Buddha's teaching. He loves his vows. We'll explain. Vows are so potent that 24 hours a day, they're in your mind stream. You are dropping powerful, delicious, non-killing karmic seeds in your bank vault. So as Lama Zopa says, we have this human life that we've got now, and the conditions of this human life from living, not just being a nice person, but living in a spiritual path, and not just living in a spiritual path, but living in vows of non-harming. And why is it that when we do decide not to kill, why is it not so powerful? Because, this is where we get into details now, because the main factor that determines the character of the action you do, which means the main factor that determines the seed that you plant, which means the main factor that determines the fruit of those seeds, is your motivation, not even the intention. So just in a very simple way, there are these four things in place. Four ways to karma right. This is one lot of four. Another lot of four now is the four things that have to be in place in order for an action you do of not killing, for example, to be qualified as a complete action of not killing, which is one that will bring a decent human birth. Four things have to be in place when you do that action. And there's more to it than that. It's more subtle, but we'll just keep it simple. The very first thing obviously has to be there's got to be a living mosquito there, or a living mouse, or a living ant, a real sentient being, a living sentient being. There, on the counter, the ant. One. Two is your mind involved in it. And this is the major piece. And there's more than this, but basically two parts happening. One is intention, which is not the one of good intention. We use the word like that, but not here. It's the bare bones, I will not kill. The thought, I will not kill. It's going to be intentional. And then the second part there, and I think the motivation probably comes first. It's hard to know. Compassion in this case. Poor little ant, don't want to harm it. I will not kill. So intention and motivation, they so totally come together normally, especially when it comes to the killing the ants. We don't even think we intend to kill the ants. We just wash them down the sink. You hardly even notice, because the intentions are so strong. The habit is so strong to kill the ants, the cockroaches, the rats, whatever, the lice, Don't even notice them. Wash them down the sink, get rid of these smelly things, So there is intention, I will kill the ants, and there's a motivation. In this case, aversion. Aversion. How disgusting, all these ants in my kitchen. Of course it's aversion. It's your pet ant. You'll bring in the fireman to catch it. Go down the plumbing and find your little precious ant. If you're attached to it. Look what we do for the animals we're attached to, So we have aversion. So the motive... What happened? Nothing. So the motivation will be attachment, aversion in this case, for the ants. And the intention is I will kill it. So they so totally come together, it's like one thought. But there's actually two there. 3, the third of the 4 things to be in place, you do the action. You turn on the tap. And then 4, the result. You make sure the ant goes down, dead ant. And I'm sure I started off being a non-killing, I turned into a killing. Same thing. So the killing action would be 1, the ant, 2, intention, or first aversion, and then I will kill it. 3, you do the action, turn on the tap, and then make sure it goes down. And then 4, the end result, a dead ant. That's a complete action of killing. So, of course, if it's a human, a kangaroo, there's a million variations of these 4 that determine the strength of the negative karma or the positive karma, Like might be just vague, mild aversion. But if maybe you hate spiders, but you're also sadistic and you pull its legs out, that will be obviously a million times heavier karma for you, isn't it? Because of the suffering of the spider. You can see that, it's obvious. So many things make it much worse or much better, depending on your mind. But the key factor is the motivation. The key factor is the motivation. This is where it comes to killing our pets. It's always difficult in our culture, especially in this country, I think. We don't ever say killing our pets, we say putting them down. Maybe we sound scientific and we'll say euthanize. We've discussed this. It's a difficult one to look at. But this is, again, the whole point is motivation. This is why the point about this is the commonest one for us killing our pets. We do have compassion. There's no doubt we have compassion. Because the pet is suffering. So for you, karmically, that's fine. You could argue there's not much negative karma. Even though you intended to kill, you asked the doctor, the vet to kill them. They killed them. It's quite heavy because you get other people involved in the negativity as well. But the motivation, you really meant well. But as long as Oprah says meaning was not enough. So for you, this is the crucial point when we forget this. For you, it's fine. You had compassion. But you don't ever ask the question, well, I wonder if I did benefit my doggy. Because we just assume doggy's dead, because we don't talk about consciousness continuing, But if you have the Buddhist view, the question has to be, well, have I benefited the dog? And what's the way to answer the question? The only answer is, the action that you did you guarantee that when your dog died, one of its own virtuous non-killing karmic seed was triggered and it died a peaceful death, and then eventually it went to a nice human mother's womb where it met practiced a spiritual path? Then you can answer, yes, you benefited your dog. But we can't say that. We don't have that level of wisdom. So because we're not clairvoyant, you don't play Russian roulette. We've discussed all this in a week, So, but the key point I'm trying to get at, any action we do, the crucial component in order for a seed or a tendency to be left in the mind is the mind has to be involved. I mean, there's discussions in the Lamrim how there can still be some results, even if you don't know that you killed it. So, there's, for example, Margaret might have an ant in the kitchen, and she has got ants in the kitchen, and she tries her best to save them. I see that. But let's just say she doesn't see an ant. The ant is there, number 1. Number 2, intention to kill the ant, no. She doesn't see it. Motivation, no. She doesn't see it. 3, the ant goes down the sink. 4, dead ant. Karma for Margaret, 0. Because she didn't see it. You can argue that. So the mind is the key factor. And within the intention and the motivation is the key factor. But now, this is the point about our virtuous karma. When you save the ant, let's say, out of compassion, marvelous. But because we don't have bodhicitta, which is this outrageous level of altruism, our compassion is not that strong. In other words, if you get overrun by millions of ants, we suddenly find ourselves thinking, well, this is too much. I can't cope with this. And we're going to put them down the sink, you know. One ant is okay, 10 maybe, but excuse me, mate. A whole house of ants, I'm sorry. I remember I was so moved one time by one of our nuns, this amazing nun, who's a serious meditator, you know, and she was in our centre up in a retreat centre, way up in the bush. You've got to walk into it. It's so way up, you know, in the on the California coast, inland from about where Big Sur is, some city, some town halfway up the Pacific coast. And there's a retreat centre there. And people who do long retreat live there, very isolated. Someone said it was a perfect place. He said even the birds were quiet. Anyway, she was there meditating a long time. So you have these sacks of flour and things like this. And I don't know what gets into flour that turns into moths. What were moths before they were moths? I don't know anything. Does anybody know? Anyway, she was overrun by millions of moths, thousands maybe. She spent weeks. She was selling numbers over. She spent weeks. And releasing the moths. Weeks. One moth at a time. Now that's incredible, isn't it? Would you agree? That's really kind and patient. But we can see we don't have much compassion, you know. One moth, okay. 20 ants, okay. But bombarded, cockroaches everywhere. To not want to kill them. That's intense. So, in other words, our compassion is limited. And therefore, our actions aren't that powerful. So, whereas if you live in vows of not killing, I mean, the Buddha talks about how, I think I see it in some texts, they say that vows, I'm going to go into what they are in more detail, psychologically how they function, are like a subtle energy visible to clairvoyance, something very potent about them. And psychologically, it makes sense. So what is a vow? Think about it. We just hear it as something that someone's squashing on top of us. It's forcing us to do something. We hear it as very punitive, you know. But it's really obvious. The vow is a very powerful intention to refrain from something. And here, specifically, it's the powerful intention to refrain from killing. For example, and then, you know, when you take refuge, we're going to do that on Sunday, and those who are going to take it for the first time, or those who are going to renew, you take refuge first, and then you take the 5 layperson's vows, they call them that. These are the vows at the very first level of practice, and they're called the vows of individual liberation. They're the vows that enable you to begin to practice, to enable you to program your mind to be able to eventually get liberation. You're the main beneficiary of those vows. And the monks and nuns' vows are the same level. You have a lot more than the 5 there. So what is a vow? Let's look at it. And actually, we really understand it. We just don't think like this. You think now, when you learn to drive a car, you look at the number of things you agree not to do. Think about it like that. There must be hundreds. I'm not talking about road rules. I'm talking about the actual things you have to learn to refrain from doing in order to drive a car properly. You absolutely do decide that you would caution. I would never put the foot on the brake at the same time as the accelerator. You have to know that. It's got to be embedded in your mind. That's a vow. Because you know if you did it, you'd be in serious trouble. You'd blow up the engine, you know. You know you agree to not turn the wheel left if you're going to go right. I mean, these are the most simple examples, but we completely internalize these, don't we? We know we do this. So this learning to drive a car means hundreds of things you've agreed to not do, and indeed hundreds of things you've agreed to do. And you learn them until eventually you can drive a car naturally. That's how we learn everything. But we don't unpack it like that. And you would never break that vow. You would never. It would be insane to put the foot on the accelerator at the same time as the brake. It's like that. Think about it. So it's not just your driving instructor saying, don't turn the wheel left if you're going to turn right, otherwise you'll go to hell. Don't live in fear, I'm going to explode if I do it. It's logical. It's not threatening, it's not punishment. It's got natural consequences. That's the Buddha's view about karma. And vows are to be super potent psychologically, because there you are, you sit in front of somebody, and in my case, I've been given permission by my teacher to give these vows. And where did I get them from? It's like this lineage also. I got it from my teacher. They got it from theirs. And we can track this back through this power source of human beings right back to the Buddha. You know, it's very tasty. And then you agree. We sit there and it's like we do a contract with the Buddha. You know, you agree. You're agreeing to yourself, really. Buddha's like your witness. And the person representing Buddha, in this case, it'd be me on Sunday, you know. And you agree, from this moment to the time of my death, I will never kill. I will never steal. I will never lie. So then you get a bit panic-stricken. Oh, what do I have to lie tomorrow? That's like saying, what do I have to put the foot on the accelerator at the same time as the brake? Okay, it's a bit different example, but you just don't consider it. Of course you wouldn't do it. You don't want the comment, you don't want the results. So the interesting thing about the karma, of course, karma, when you just, we all know when you decide to do something, you will do it. So you have the vow, which is this strong intention, this decision, this agreement, this commitment to not kill, not steal, not lie, not jump on the wrong partner. And the fifth one would be no alcohol and drugs, no intoxicants. If you take all five, you know, you would vow to refrain from those. So the karmic consequences, first of all, because the vow is powerful psychologically, and they say in the teachings, as I mentioned before, as Lama Zopa says, they're so powerful that they're in your mind stream 24 hours a day. And you're ticking over virtuous karmic seeds every second. And even when you're not thinking about it, even when you're asleep, vows are said to be so powerful, this is Buddha's teaching. And not only that, but keep living in these vows, you're putting atomic bombs under the past tendencies. You know, so it's a powerful way to purify your mind and a powerful way to consciously create virtue, you know, which is what we're trying to do, to mold your mind. So basically your vows to not do this and not do that when you're driving a car is to help you turn into a really good car driver. But what are you trying to do here? You're trying to turn into a really good person, a moral, kind, non-harming person. I mean, on this planet, that's a pretty stupendous thing if you look at even just humans, driven by our cravings and our desires and our anger and our resentment, lying and stealing and killing. And of course, and we all assume that if no one catches us, we get away with it. That's the worst ignorance of all. That's like thinking because your doctor doesn't see you smoke, somehow you got away with it and you won't get cancer. It's like infantile. It's childish, you know. It's ignorant. It's superstitious. But that's how we think of morality. So living in vows is said to be a brilliant way to live. Perfect, easy, powerfully programming your mind. Every second of the day that you're keeping those vows, whether you're thinking of it or not, you're ticking over virtuous karmic seeds and purifying those tendencies. So it's an easy way to program yourself into becoming a virtuous, positive, non-harming, you know, fulfilled, happy person, basically. And the long-term results, you will wake up in the next life. You will not have any tendency to kill. Like a miracle. Look at the number of humans who don't have a tendency to kill. Pretty rare. You will have no tendency to lie. You'll have no tendency to steal. Even look at us now. This is because we've lived in vows in the past. You won't get killed. You won't die young. You won't have environmental things. This is the consequences of living in vows. We can see we get the human body because of past non-killing, but most humans have the other three results of killing. And that's because we haven't lived in vows. They haven't lived in vows of not killing. They haven't made strong decisions not to kill. That's how the way they talk about vows, you know. And the other powerful way to put atomic bombs under the tendencies is to do the purification practice. As Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, we are insane not to do this practice every day. Before we do that, let's talk about what I've talked about so far. If you have any questions for me. So any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sweetheart.
You said earlier about running into people.
Not just, in other words, none of them are random. That's exactly right. So hilarious as it sounds, can't be random.
So for people that you've never met in your life, you will never meet, that means you have no karma with them.
From countless past lives.
And for people that you, even like as simple as running into people in the supermarket.
That's right.
Just basic.
In other words, I mean, if you think through the logic of it, if it's being a natural law, so a natural law of botany would mean, even if you don't understand botany, the principle would tell you that there couldn't possibly be anything growing if there weren't a seed there. Would you agree with that? There has to be a cause for it that's related to the law of botany. Would you agree? And it's a coherent law and a consistent law. Math is the same. Engineering, all the things we know about, they're natural laws. Whether you know them or not, we can see they're coherent and consistent. Well, karma, if it's a natural law, and there's a kind of karma called experiences similar to the cause, which is related to how you are seen and treated, how could someone whom you've never harmed before since beginningless time suddenly, out of the blue, for no logical reason anywhere, want to harm you? It's an impossibility. Even meeting that person is an impossibility, unless there's some karma between you.
So for people that may have bad relationships or
and look at the world. That's right.
So that's all.
What? Sorry, say it again. What?
A random argument or not getting along with somebody.
It's usually your family. Of course, we have all the kind ones. You meet kind people, and people are kind to you, and you know, I mean, endless experiences like this we have. You know, both good and bad. See, the only reason it's shocking to us because we don't realize it's a law of botany. We just think it's all random. No one knows why pink roses come. Maybe because the sun shone today and was very sweet, or maybe because a bird sang a song, a rose came. I mean, in other words, we've got no concept of a law. You'd be almost laughed at because we all know there is a law that runs botany, you know. Or you think buildings stand up because a holy being is there and he's holding them up. I mean, all these ideas we could have because you don't know the laws of gravity and the laws of math. You understand? We understand this when it comes to science. We're brilliant. But not when it comes to our experiences. There's a brand new idea. Or it's God's law, and God has got a plan, and God does know what he's doing, and there is logic to it. He just doesn't need to tell us. And that's when you have faith in God. This is why, I mean, this is really the truth about having Creator. There is logic to it. God has a plan. God knows exactly what he's doing. That's pretty powerful. What? There's which one? The Christian one or my one? The Buddhist one, sorry. Honey child, they're sentient beings. All this law refers, sweetheart, this, try and get the principle. This law refers to all living beings, all the hell beings, all the spirits, all the gods, all the humans, all the animals, just naturally. That's the main big point to try and get our head around, which is so opposite to how we think. Do you understand? I mean, it seems random because we don't have this view. So, you know, for example, you love all those stories on YouTube about a lion taking care of a mouse. Most lions will eat a mouse for, you know, to pick their teeth with. But this little lion, this mouse just love each other. There's an amazing, strong karmic connection, you know. There's no other, the Buddhist says there's no other explanation. Such goodness between them. You read all those animal things on YouTube, little doggies that meet each other and the one, I mean, the endless little stories. The Buddhist view is the first cause of anything that ever happens for any sentient being anywhere ever is their past karma. First cause, always karma. Second cause is other conditions. It's just something, if you think about the view of karma, this is the thing to get used to. And the natural law component is the one that repeatedly keeps saying. Are you hearing me? Mm-hmm. It's the principle. I'm trying to think about it like that. Whatever the result is, winning $100 million, it's not random. You're not lucky. That's the fruit of your past generosity. Missing the lotto by one number is not the fruit, is not unfair. It's the fruit of no generosity or lack of, or, for example, you understand? You understand? I remember this is an interesting story. Even this one, for example, I met in Kathmandu. I had an operation on my nose in Kathmandu a couple of years ago, and a friend of mine came to visit. In the next room was this young Tibetan nun. She was like 26 or something. I can see you, Jean. I'll come soon. She was 26 and this wonderful Tibetan nun. She'd been there for 9 months. She was in a helicopter in the winter, in the forest in Nepal, 10 people. The helicopter crashed, smashed to smithereens, not a fraction of anything left of anybody. She floated to a tree. And then she fell from the tree onto the ground. And she said to me, this is called a shemdup. I saw my shemdup in the tree. And then she fell on the ground. She had her tights on, luckily. And she put a hand out, and there was her phone, and there was a line, and she rang her daddy. Now, that seems like a miracle, right? A bit weird, that she had so much virtuous karma, so much non-killing karma, that you should have been smashed to nothing. She sat there for 10 hours while I had to look for her and broke every bone in her body. But she was there with her phone. Just put her hand out, and there it was. And she rang her daddy. Do you understand? We love those stories.
Everyone else died.
They found nothing. Just blew up completely. She just floated down the sky into the tree, and then the tree kept her skirt, and she fell on the ground. I mean, that's insane, isn't it? Do you understand? All I'm saying is the general rule, the law of karma. The point to keep saying is when you read the text, they don't keep saying it's a natural law. It's just us to say this because we need to hear that it's not the same as Christianity. That's the view we're used to having. Or it's not the view of the Western view, which is there's no reason for this yet. Or it's only external. Do you understand? We don't see coherence in it. But if it is a natural law, it has to be coherent, which means nothing could ever happen to you, good or bad, if you didn't cause it, and if you didn't have a relationship with that being. That's the kind of thing to think about as a principle. Do you understand, people?
So I have a question.
Yeah, go. And then there's Jean coming soon. Jean, let me have Jean first. Go, Jean. Talk to me, darling.
Venerable Robina, it's Patty speaking for Jean.
Oh, good, Patty.
She doesn't have a microphone.
Good job.
But she says, regarding making a vow, is vowing in our own mind not to kill, etc., not as powerful because we have no witness that happens when, for example, we say a vow in front of you?
No, I understand that. It's just how they talk. This set of vows is this little package that's come from the Buddha, So there's a particular set of vows. You can't possibly say there's no power in a vow not to kill yourself. We're just talking this particular set of Buddhist vows coming from the Buddha and going through all the kind of the power source of all the humans for the last 2,500 years. It's said to be quite powerful. All I can do is say what the teachings say, and then we can think. But of course, if anybody vows not to do anything, how marvelous, how extraordinary. But I would suggest it's maybe not as strong. Perhaps. I'm not sure. Understand? As a simple example, but when you decide to make your vows in public to your relationship, you do it in public, you shake hands, you write it down, a contract, you got your best wedding dress on, he's dressed up in his nice, or whoever's you're marrying, girls or boys these days, or whatever, and you do it in public. It's kind of more powerful, in a way there's more power to it, and although it's still your mind, so it's just me saying that, I don't know, but we're talking about these Buddhist set of vows. I can't say more, I'm sorry, Jean. Yes, sweetheart.
Right. So just to clarify, so when you keep using the term natural law,
yeah,
it's as like a hypothetical representation to show this consistency.
What do you mean hypothetical representation?
Because a natural law is something that is objectively observable.
Well, of course.
We can't objectively observe this process you're describing.
But who suggests you can't see that?
Reincarnation.
But who suggests you can't? Change the.
Been observed, because I'm very curious about.
No, of course. Okay, stop.
Past life,
of course, darling, of course.
Yeah.
So we have to take the view here. This is why I keep repeating. This information has come from the Buddha. Buddha's a person who lived 2,500 years ago. He presented his findings. So the assumption is Buddha has seen this. Otherwise, it's just superstitious, insane rubbish made up by some Joe, which is what people think of religion.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously in the materialist philosophical view of the world, there's no assertion of a consciousness that's not physical. There's no assertion of past lives. Do you understand? So of course you think this can't be proven. We assume that. But the whole Buddhist point, as we've discussed this week, we've got mind that's much more subtle. When you get single point of concentration, you access a subtle level of mind that is not depending upon the brain, that has the power to see the past and the future. That's something completely a given in the Buddhist teachings. We've got to state that explicitly because we're not used to this idea. So the logic here, everything that is Buddha's teachings is by definition his findings, just like Einstein. For example, I always quote this fellow in New Zealand one time, a scientist, in fact, he said at a teaching, who revealed the teachings to the Buddha? Now, that's typically what we think of as religion, isn't it? God reveals it. Do you understand what I'm saying? But and I said, well, who revealed the teachings to Einstein about E equals mc squared? And they all laughed, because we know very well Einstein was a clever fellow who used his mind. So clearly we're talking about a grosser level, and he was able to observe the laws of the world, and then he presented them, didn't he? Would you agree with that?
Right. So
that's Einstein. Would you accept that? Einstein.
I accept that, yeah.
Okay, then Buddha's the same.
Okay, so
that's the point.
He's simply in this abstract state of mind that is
it's not an abstract state of mind. Anybody can accomplish it. The techniques have been around for 3,000 years. It's called single-pointed concentration. You can take a couple of years to get. You've got to go up into the mountains and give up sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and mortgages and dogs. And then you do this incredible technique. You'll be able to access a subtle level of mind, and you will then be able to see the past and future. I'm speaking to simply what's in the Buddhist teachings. It's there. In other words, it's a possibility, because the view of what the mind is quite radically different, and what the mind is capable of. Do you see my point? So the assumption we have to take here, that's why I'm saying it's our working hypothesis. All the words that are Buddhist teachings, I mean, they have to be coming from a person called Buddha. Otherwise, how can you call them Buddhist teachings? Whereas the difference is, if it's Jesus Christ's teachings, he got them from God. Are you with me?
That I accept and understand.
Yeah. So that's the difference. But Buddha is not, there's no creator, there's no revelation, there's no concept of Buddha receiving this information from someone on high. Just like we know Einstein didn't receive it from a vision or a dream. He worked it out. That's the point about the Buddha. And the Buddha is basically saying anything that he has observed is he's giving us the methods for us to do the same, just like Einstein. That's the approach to take. Because you don't just swallow it whole, like you don't swallow E equals mc squared whole. Right. You've got to at least open your mind to the possibility, check on Einstein if he's a valid source, and then you start practicing 1 + 1 is 2, and you go from there. And you check the boxes as you go. Do you see my point? It's a process. That's the approach in Buddhism. We're not just thinking of it this way. It's important to spell it out like this. Do you understand?
Yes.
Rather than merely believing it and swallowing it whole and liking it. That's not helpful. It's like, you don't go, oh, I believe in math. It's nice to. You can. You'll get away with it. Enough people know math. But it's not going to help you. You've got to know it. And that's what the direct experience has to be. So all I'm doing is presenting the Buddha's teachings, and they're coming from this person called Buddha, and everybody else since then who's followed the teachings and done the same job. Do you understand my point? That's the attitude.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Yes.
I have one. The moth story made me think of this.
Okay, good.
One afternoon, there's a spider in my bathroom, and I think, I'm going to rescue this spider. So I get the cup and I get the piece of paper and come do the thing.
That's right.
Spider and cup. Walk to the stoop outside, open the door, and I turn the cup upside down. I pull the paper away, and I watch the spider start to fall out of the cup.
Yeah.
And it's like slow motion now, right?
That's right.
The cup drop, the spider drop out of the cup towards the ground, and out from underneath the stoop comes a lizard and snaps.
Oh, that's terrible.
In midair. I was horrified.
No, that's really a classic story. This is showing us, this is a perfect story. I know, so that's a perfect story of compassion isn't enough. You need wisdom. And finally, that wisdom is the wisdom of clairvoyance. That you know already the lizard is there, and you would make sure you didn't do it. That's a classic story.
That was the spider's karma. Was my fault. Right, and the reason why it happened, part of the reason why it occurred, is because of my aversion. I thought I was rescuing the spider, but actually I had aversion to it.
No, you had aversion, but the real one is you didn't have the wisdom to know the lizard would be there, or even if you knew your house, you'd know a lizard would grab it. A clever lizard, wow, that's poor little spider from the frying pan into the fire. That's really fascinating, isn't it? That's a wonderful story. I love that. I mean, poor spider. Go on, happy lizard. Go on.
Can karma also deal with places you've been to or you haven't
been to? Of course, darling.
Of
course, lots of people all over the world in all cultures report that kind of thing. There's so many now, they're documenting stories. People remember places, who've been there, remember people. Of course, that's happening more and more frequently. It's completely part of it. Of course it is, darling. I mean, even the habits we have.
You live there? Because it happened to me. Does it mean
of course.
I live there at one time?
Your familiarity with that spot. Of course it means that. Of course it means that. I mean, even the way that certain foods you like or certain tendencies you wake up with. You understand? You understand? Yeah, go on. Yeah.
You brought up weeds and roses before. Right?
What? Weeds and what?
Weeds in the garden.
Oh, weeds
The
and, yeah, the
grow
analogy of
stuff.
weeds and flowers, yeah.
So are you bringing the weeds to the karma situation?
I'm just using that as the analogy that weeds are suffering and flowers is happiness.
Okay.
Just
great.
the analogy. And they're both driven by the law of botany. It's just that we often think only bad things happen and that's karma, and good things are just like good luck. But weeds and flowers are both driven by the law of botany. Happiness and suffering are both driven by the law of karma. That's what
I get the laws and I get that what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Don't kill, don't lie. That's clearly.
Yeah.
But the weeds are just preference. Like, what if I prefer? Like, I like weeds instead of
No, I know, but
roses.
you have to buy into my analogy that weeds are what you try to pull out and flowers are what you try to grow.
Got
I
it.
get your point, you know.
Right.
Maybe when you're really clever, you can use weeds.
Right.
And that's more advanced level.
Right.
That's a really possibility. Absolutely. Well, anybody online here, Patty, has a question, sweetheart? No. Okay. Okay. So I try all the time to get the biggest picture possible, the principle, just this principle as being a natural law. Then we can gradually think about it and try to apply. And then the other thing I find is so helpful is there's only these 4 ways. There's no other way. You think about a human body. You've got a body and you have a mind. You have people and you have an environment. What else is there in your life? Think about this. So then you can, if you track throughout your life, you can put into 2 categories all the people you've met, except they sometimes change roles. Those have been nice to you and those have been mean to you. You can basically, we could do that. Sometimes they change roles. We know that, you know. But basically we have happy experiences, we have suffering experiences. Speaking very simply. So that's experiences similar to the cause. Then you've got the tendencies. Then you have the environmental result. It's very, I mean, these are the 4 ways our karma ripens. So, you know, for example, if like, you know, yeah, so if you like to say you get sick all the time, that's due to past killing that's manifesting environmentally. Maybe due to past killing, but you might have a long life. You might live till you're 97 and eat what, you know, but live long. That's also due to killing, non-killing. So you can sort of track even the simplest experiences. But the main one thing for me is that the most intense one in our lives is our relationships, isn't it? We have relationships with people. We are totally social beings. And we know the most worst suffering is having people who are harm us, mean to us, reject us, blame us. That's the nightmare of most people. Look at our relationships. Look what your hubby gives you up and hates you, or your wife or your daughter. The most pain for people is those relationships, you know. And then the most marvelous are when you have happy relationships. That's very powerful. That's experiences similar to the cause. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go.
How does it backtrack to the not killing to eating meat?
Okay, let's look at it. It's more, I think it's much more complex than we think. So first of all, I always think it's interesting that we usually only ever ask the question in relation to eating meat. I don't have any person. I mean, but
I'll put it across.
no,
right.
but it's good. Yeah, because I think it's because we're attached to food so intensely, it looms large for us,
right.
You know. But actually, the broader point would be, what's the karma of utilizing animals' bodies for our benefit, which includes usually their death, you know, or whatever. That's the broader point, isn't it? And if you think of it that way, I mean, it's pervasive. So the first point that Buddhism makes, the biggest point, the broadest point, is the universe is pervaded by living beings. We know our body is like a walking zoo. Even just under our armpit is like a walking zoo. It's like a living zoo. It's like an ecosystem in our mouth. It's full of living beings, tiny, miniature, sentient beings. So we're slaughtering daily just by existing. That is undeniable, I think. But we don't tend to think about that. We only get all excited when it comes to eating it. Do you understand? Because we're attached to foods, we get very fanatic and very extreme and political, and then argue with people and tell them off and all the business. But nevertheless, that's one point. The second point, of course, the meat industry, it seems to be, is destroying the planet. I've read things. I mean, I don't know. I haven't got scientifically educated, but you read articles that it's quite hideous that the meat industry is really destroying the planet. So that alone is another discussion. Then you've got the other point is this one. It's, you know, from our point of view, we tend to think if you stop, we think it's all what do you call demand and supply, or supply and demand. So if we stop ordering lobsters, lobsters will stop being killed. We think that. I think we think that, or chickens or whatever. But, you know, I remember one time in Maine, where they have lobsters. Suddenly, one season, out of the blue, no logic, and nobody ordered them, 10 times more lobsters popped up. Well, initially the fishermen were really happy, but of course it deflated the prices, so they ended up suffering. Nobody ordered those lobsters. They just, karma took care. These lobsters, born as lobsters, all landed in the waters of Maine, you know. So the poor Maine state government had to spend millions of dollars marketing these wretched old lobsters, you know, poor lobsters. So no one ordered them. It's the karma of sentient beings. And you can also, that's one point, and just a factor these in, that's all. The other point is, you know, in factories, people have the karma to take a job. Okay, it's often the poorest people, but lots of poor people don't get a job in a slaughterhouse. But due to even karma, you notice the job in the slaughterhouse. And you happily, not happily, but the karma must be there to do that job. Do you understand? So if the chicken slaughterhouses get run out, then the pig slaughterhouse, you get a job there. So karma in sentient beings' minds to kill. The karma of the sentient being to be born as a fish to get killed. The karma of the chickens to get killed. All that's part of the dynamic. Nevertheless, it's a really suffering industry. There's no question. I mean, recently, what is it they talked about all the factories in Idaho or somewhere because they found some bird flu in one chicken. So these poor workers spent weeks and weeks and weeks mass slaughtering in the most hideous way millions of chickens by heating up the pens so much that the poor chickens exploded and died this most monstrous death. And these poor humans walking in knee-high shit, burning these millions of bodies. And then the workers got sacked. So then the workers got sacked, you know, got fired. So like these monstrous, it's like a nightmare to read about these things. And this is the tragedy, you know, because we're all attached. It is true. We are attached to meat. We're attached to food. So everybody, and in America, especially in the whole industrial world, where we try to get industries that are efficient and then that means poor birds are going to be, I mean, you can't believe the suffering of these creatures. But all of that's true. But then if you analyze it, this is not trying to be negative or cynical. We get all a bit over-exaggerated and think we're so holy because I don't eat a chicken, let's say. We think suddenly I'm saving all these chickens. I think the tipping point for the number of people to be vegetarian on this planet to stop the chickens getting killed is pretty stupendous, which doesn't mean you don't do it. You do your best, but don't run around thinking like you're a saint because you don't eat chicken. And this is the other point. I remember one time, I always tell this story. When I was in England one time, I was in this shop in Liverpool. It was a cheese shop, and I was buying this kick-ass cheddar. I had a picture of me buying this kick-ass cheddar, right? Well, all the fundamentalist vegans, with respect, complained about how dare this Buddhist nun eat cheese, that kind of thing. I didn't want to be my kick-ass cheddar. I didn't want to be political, but I'd always wondered how many bugs on the road, and they're sentient beings, you know. We don't care about them. We don't. I mean, we start being conscious we do. And so I looked up, sure enough, Google it. Some Dutch guy's done the research. It's something like on the number plate of one car per kilometre. I don't know. I mean, like trillions of little bugs get smashed to smithereens, right? And this fellow responded, well, you can't help that. Do you understand? So then another story I put on, this one for me is always very telling. This Australian scientist got fed up with all the fundamentals, vegans and vegetarians. So he said, well, excuse me, there's this wheat field. He just mentioned this wheat field in Victoria, where I come from, where on the off season one year, millions and millions of little field mice gathered there. And he had photos of them. He said they'd sing love songs to each other. And guess what they do when they have to grow the wheat? They don't politely pluck out each little mouse like my friend plucked out the moths. They slaughter them. And he even said, oh, you can't help that either. So in other words, we're so blind that you can think that doesn't matter. But if you ate them, then you're in trouble. You get my point? So we're a bit irrational, I'd say. Right. It's just food for thought. Then the other point is this. But wait a minute, wait, I've got to finish. Wait a minute, wait. The final point is this one. The main beneficiary of not eating meat out of compassion is oneself. And luckily, maybe it might help, you know, the world like that. But to get so fanatic and think we're so holy because we're vegan or vegetarian, it's just not looking at facts. We're going to be a bit humble about it. Right, but yes, but please, I have to say this again. But if you decide out of compassion not to eat, that's fantastic for you. Marvelous. Go for it.
Right, because I feel like it's in the world of doing your vows, right? Of saying I'm not going to lie.
Right? No, this is the extra point. When you take a vow not to kill, it doesn't mean you're taking a vow not to eat meat.
No, I understand that.
So, no, you don't, because I didn't say it.
Oh.
I'm just telling you now.
So
unless, of course, wait, no, stop, honey. You've got to wait. I've got to tell you all the answers. Unless you go, Robina, please kill that sheep for me. I don't want to kill. Then you eat the sheep, you eat the ribs of the sheep. No. Or if, let's say, you rejoice when someone offers you a lamb chopped. Well, I'm glad they had to kill it and not me. Then, of course, then it's negative because your thoughts are negative. But if someone, it's like if you eat meat and it's not directly, you didn't directly kill it, or you're not close to the action. That's where the karma is heavier for you if you're closer to the action. The karma for you is what I'm saying. So it's quite intricate. But the general one is, of course, to have compassion, to try not to harm any living being. That's the point. So anyway, now, please, what's your question?
I was just saying, in that same space, it's like if I make the commitment.
Can you hear him? He's got the mic. He's going to hear it. Okay, good.
If I vow not to lie,
yeah,
I know that the lies are going to continue all around me.
That's right.
Right.
But at least you do what
I know what I'm doing.
That's right. Precisely. That's the point.
I know the lies are still going to be flying.
That's the point. That's the point. So at least it's a way. Living in vows is the most perfect method to mold our mind into the mind of a good person for your future happiness. That's unashamedly the benefit, and to be delighted to do that, for the sake, and then eventually also for the sake of others, of course, there's no question. So with the meeting everyone, we do our best. All we can do is do our best, and then by showing example, being not bossing everybody around, not being fundamentalist, And if we do eat meat, then at least say a mantra. I mean, Lama Zopa says a bone that's 1,000 years old. This is karma as well. This is karma too. Honey, this is karma also. Even a bone, Lama Zopa says, it's 1,000 years old. In other words, that was the body of a sentient being once, wasn't it? Because of this direct relationship of that sentient being, wherever it is now, and that body, just you saying a mantra, which blesses your breath, and then blowing on that bone, that consciousness will benefit, wherever they are now. That's also due to karma. So we can do what we can, given we're living in this nightmarish environment where just by living you kill. So we've got to become conscious and develop compassion for your sake and the sake of others. That's the broader attitude. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. That's the main. Yes, anybody online have something to say, please? No. Okay, darlings. Any more questions here?
Yes, Nicole just raised her hand.
No
Sorry,
questions.
Venerable.
Who has?
Venerable Robina, I have a question about dead insects we may find around the house.
That's right.
What would you recommend to do with those?
You blow mantras on them and bless them.
And then put them outside?
Put them outside, sure.
Okay.
That's it, darling. It's the same if you find your dead husband. Blow mantras on him and bury him.
And put him outside.
Put him outside. Or feed him to the dogs. I mean, Tibetans have that wonderful way of funerals. They call it sky burial. There's these people whose job it is, they cut up all the bits and pieces up in the mountains. They cut up all the soft bits and the hard bits. All the ravens and the hawks, or whatever you call them, are waiting, and they zoom in and eat the lot, lick it clean. It's a very efficient way to get rid of the bodies. I think cemeteries are such a waste of real estate. They're ridiculous. Anyway, it's just my opinion. It's not Buddha's opinion.
That's not a message.
No, it's not in the text. It's okay. But what else, people? 4 to 9. Any other questions?
Here we have a question.
Good, Pat. Go, darling. Yes, talk to me. Unmute, precious.
Thank you.
Okay.
This question is from Shari. She asks, can you ask if a roach is unable to catch and relocate? And
sorry, say it again. Start again. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think what she's saying, if she's unable to catch the roach and relocate it due to her personal fear of it living, giving birth, or worse, having my dog get hurt by it, what is the solution when killing it is not optional, or is there always an option? What if we can't catch it and relocate it? Does that make sense?
All we can do is to try to cultivate a view of compassion, all we can do first is to try and cultivate a view for our own sake to not want to kill or harm sentient beings, because we know we don't want the karmic results ourselves of that action. This takes us the longest time to think. Second, all we can do is try to have compassion and not harm sentient beings. That has to be the general guiding principle. So I would suggest you try to get past your fears for your sake and the sake of the cockroach. That's just one suggestion. Of course, it's not easy, but the broad point is for one's own sake to develop the view to not want to harm sentient beings, because you don't want to program your mind with killing and therefore future suffering, and then to try and cultivate compassion for all living beings and do our best to not want to harm them. That's the broad guiding principle. And if we think it, then we will start to do it. So tomorrow we're going to have to go into how we purify karma, because that's a major answer to it. That's a major answer. The way to shift our karma is to do purification, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Okay. What else?
What time is tomorrow?
Huh?
What time is tomorrow?
What time is tomorrow? 11 o'clock. 11 and then a lunch break and then more, or as long as it takes. Yeah, 11 to
11 to 1 and 2 to 4.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I always end up ending earlier because I talk so fast, you see. And I exhaust everybody. Maybe I exhaust myself now. Maybe I'm just making an excuse. But anyway, it'll be tomorrow. We'll go into more detail about certainly karma and about purification and about vows. We'll go into more detail because that'll be preparation for Sunday when we're taking, when some people are going to renew their refuge or take refuge and then take the vows as well. So what to say? I mean, the thing is that I think we miss completely in our culture, in modern culture, I'll say West, but it's a bit limited, the Western culture, the view of karma, the first reason to not want to kill is because you don't want the future suffering results, because it's harder for us. Compassion almost seems easier. You understand, people? Because we can't, it's really hard for us to really imagine that everything we think and do and say now produces our future results. It's very hard for us to get that. But somehow it's very fascinating. This is the first one. To really be revolted by the thought of future suffering is what drives us to want to live a moral life. And it's not self-centered, it's intelligent. Just, we get it when it comes to the bodies. Of course it's difficult. I mean, who can see a future life? Nobody, you know. So it's quite abstract for us. It is abstract for us. But in general, I think my feeling is, I think that even without thinking future lives, my sense is, I think this is probably a good one. If you think about, if you continue to have anger, fear, resentment, jealousy, to then cause you to lie and kill and steal, I mean, forget about future results. What the name of God in heaven are you doing to yourself? And that's where we're very suffering. We can't see the relationship. We can't realize that we're molding ourselves into a really miserable person. If we can get that, forget future lives. Who wants to turn into an angry, anxious, neurotic person? Well, then if you don't want to be an anxious, neurotic person, try to change. That's, I think, blindly evident. Don't you think so? Do you understand? Forget past future lives. That's too complex. This is obvious. And that's where we really are very disconnected. We don't think it matters what we think and say. Like, you know, I'm allowed to say what we like, we say. That's like saying I'm allowed to sow whatever seeds I like in my garden. We don't realize that we're programming ourselves. That's where we're really disconnected. I think where we're really suffering. We think, but I'm allowed to be anxious. I'm allowed to be angry. I'm allowed to be depressed. Like, it's not my fault. It's quite schizophrenic. If you can realize that, what do you think you're doing to yourself every day? Then we'd all be wonderfully happy, moral people. We'd never want to even raise our voice. Do you understand? Huh?
What would you say to someone who, and people in my life specifically, without getting specific, that are alcoholic, neurotic, whatever, but they say they're happy. Oh, but I'm happy. I'm
love them and give them a hug.
But it's like, if they think they're happy, are they? Like, is the mind, if their mind says, oh, I'm happy.
No, darling, that's where you got to know Buddha's view of what happiness is. You've got to understand what causes happiness. You understand what happiness really is. I mean, it's like a person who's, you know, I mean, come on. You've got to think about those things. You'd love them. You'd give them a hug.
Just to see if what I think is.
I mean, you know, have to analyze what we mean by happiness.
Well, I certainly don't, but I obviously just love them.
Who they are.
How much they're suffering, and it's
no, but
always
also,
shocking to me when, like, oh, I'm at peace, I'm good with this. I'm happy. I can drink like this, and it's good for me.
I know, but all we've got to do is remember. Okay, when I think about, we can see other people, but then when I think of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who never sleeps for 1 second, meditates day and night, he's got highest realizations, he never stops helping other people. And then I think of myself, and I'm like a big fat lazy blob, lump who sleeps 8 hours every night. I'm as lazy as sin and completely pathetic and eat my food and totally full of attachment if I compare with Lama Zopa. So just don't get too patronizing. Just realize you're a load of rubbish as well. It's all right. Do you understand my point? I mean, in a sense, it's relative, And the other thing is this.
Working out the mind part of
No, but the real one is this. But the real one is this. Also, when you see someone else's attachment, you recognize it. They don't. Then thank you for showing me my attachment, and go back to yourself. I know you know that, but that's my real answer. That's the main one. Most powerful. Yeah. Because it's all just relative. It's all a question of degree. We're all in the same boat. We're all mentally ill. So it's a question of degree. That's how I put it. Yeah, go on.
I probably know the answer to this, but there's no way of correcting one particular karma that's in your life that you feel needs to change, or...
What do you mean by this? I've lost the people. Where are they? They're all gone. There's nobody here. What happened to them?
We're still here.
I know, but I can't see you guys.
We just didn't hear the question.
I know. Wait a minute. The Zoom phone is expanding your reach. Let's do this. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So I need you to give me an example, sweetheart. Thank you.
An example. Say you have bad luck with relationships.
Say what?
You have bad luck with relationships.
I don't know about bad luck. What's not bad? Come on, wait. You mean poor me? No one. People always leave me. No one loves me. Boyfriends cheat on me. Be a bit more specific. You mean you have a relationship and it doesn't last?
Yeah, or like what I was saying the other day, where I interviewed for 2 jobs I wanted, I didn't get.
What?
So I said the other day I had interviewed for 2 jobs.
Oh, okay.
That I really wanted,
okay, good.
And I didn't get.
Okay.
So
basically your question is, what do I do when my attachment doesn't get what it wants? Which is the right way to put the question. Your attachment's all needy for lovely things, which is how we all are. So what's my approach when the boyfriend doesn't love me? I don't get the job. Mummy blames me. That's your question, is it not?
Yeah.
Well, that's what practice is.
So I can't change anything.
No. First level of practice. Okay, this is like technical step by step. The techniques for applying the laws of karma if you're trying to be a Buddhist. One is, immediately if the boyfriend cheated on you, okay, that's the fruit of my past action. You own it. You own it. That's the way it is. Second, you look at your mind and see the attachment and how it's painful and hurting, and you try to change your mind. So you own the karma, you accept that, and then you try to see your mind. But it doesn't mean you can't try to change things. You can always try to change things. But if you can't change things, so this really gets us to something. Like, let's say you don't like your job. Let's say you've got a job and you don't like it. And you moan and complain, and it's true, people don't like their jobs. So, but what our problem is, this is very clear, isn't it? Our problem is we can't stand the job. You hate the boss, the colleague is boring. And so that your friend says, well, honey, you could leave the job. And you go, no, I can't do that. I won't get another job. Not possible. There's no other jobs around. No, I couldn't do that. Then the other option is what? Change your mind about it. Reinterpret it. See it as good. Make the most of it. No, I can't do that. It's a horrible job. So we stay in misery. We can't leave it and we can't change our mind. There's only 2 things ever. Change it or change your mind. Bottom line. That's the real way of putting it. So then and whatever it is, and even if the job is horrible, but you realize, okay, there's some good things, and you choose to stay there, everything will change. If you're in a relationship that's not so healthy, but you make a decision, am I going to leave? Is it really not viable? Is it just ridiculous to be in this relationship? And then you decide, I'm going to leave. But you could decide to stay and then make the most of it. So in either case, you're owning responsibility. When we start to actually choose, that's when life changes. But we feel victimized and we don't know how to decide. So we feel like it's all happening to us. That's the nightmare. That's a way of saying how you apply the law of karma. When you know it's the fruit of something you've done, you're learning from it, and then you look at your mind and you try to change your mind. That's what day-to-day practice is. But the bigger one is, if the relationship is horrible, you have the power to leave it if you think it's not worthwhile. But maybe you decide to stay. But either way, you choose to go or you choose to stay. Then your life changes. Owning responsibility is what makes us change. You see my point?
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. That's why my friends in prison are so bent. I have such admiration. They don't have the luxury of leaving. So they've got no choice but to change their minds, you know, but to change their minds. That's pretty powerful. Because when you change your mind, you're changing your interpretation of it. Everything is then different. Everything is now different. And that's the thing that's really, to discover the truth of that is pretty powerful. Do you understand? Okay. Time to go home. Anybody else on there, Patty, darling? No, okay. So it's time to go home, for me to go home. You can just go back and go to the kitchen, get a cup of tea, you guys, or whatever you're going to do. Or go to bed, whatever. I've got to get Margaret to drive me home. Okay, people. So see some of you tomorrow. We'll continue the discussion of karma and how to purify it. And I'll go more into vows and to try to show how, you know, as a basic level of starting point for your Buddhist practice, these are the best tools you could have. You can sit back with your feet up and eat popcorn and watch telly all day. And I'm really not being sarcastic. You get your cake, you can have your cake and eat it too. So meanwhile, we think how marvelous all these thoughts we've had. If there's any advice, take it, put it into practice, even as 1%. That's great. And we'd be delighted. We've left all these seeds in our mind. They haven't gone astray. So we've nourished them from this moment forward. So we can develop our marvelous potential. We can mold our mind into the mind of a happy, wise, fulfilled, content, satisfied person, generous and compassionate, for our sake and their sake of others. Jangchub Semchog Rinpoche. Ma ke panam ke guchi, ke panyampa, me pa yang, gongne, gongdu, probashog. Thank you, dearest people. So kind. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Goodbye, everybody. I'm turning you off now.
Feel free
See you,
to
sweethearts.
unmute
Bye,
and say
darling.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.